It's an Archaeodeath publication launch.
Welcome Archaeodeathlings to my first video of 2022, and it's an extra special video because I'm going to be reviewing my brand new publication co-edited with Liam Delaney, who's a doctoral researcher at the University of Chester. Offa's Dyke Journal Volume 3 for 2021 is out, and it was out just under the wire at the very end of December, so it does count and officially is a 2021 publication. Now you can download it all from the Offa's Dyke Journal website, where you can not only click on home and learn about the journal itself, but there's information about the journal and the contact team and the focus. There's also the current issue, which is Offa's Dyke Journal Volume 3, with a lovely stained glass by Stephen Bradley that's on display in the Offa's Dyke Centre in Knighton, Powys, as the front cover, and also the archives, where you can explore Volume 1 for 2019, Volume 2 for 2020, and Volume 3. And what I thought is I would use this video to simply go through the galley PDF, and when you go into the table of contents here, you can actually download the entire PDF, ODJ3, or you can view each of the 9 individual articles and download them individually. So here's the first one, for example, my kind of introduction / editorial, and there it is within the website embedded in, or you can download it from here. But let us skip over to the PDF version of the whole thing so you can just get a sense of the entire issue. So this is Volume 3's front cover, and the masthead information showing our expanded editorial board, including and the 2 editors, myself and Liam Delaney. And then the front cover with our lovely sponsors. This is our Offa's Dyke Collaboratory Research Network. is the network of researchers that the Offa's Dyke Journal is produced for, under the auspices of. And we have our 2 main sponsors, Offa's Dyke Association and the University of Chester. Then we have the volume contents, all nicely laid out there. And we have the first article. The first article by myself is an exploration of the various crises during 2021 affecting the progress of the Offa's Dyke Collaboratory, including the pandemic, the aftermath of Brexit, university redundancy processes, as well as the broader attack on the university sector and archaeology within it. The attack on the humanities, particularly, and archaeology is part of that, including the closures of some other archaeology departments and programs. And I set that in the broader context of reviewing and exploring the past journals, the reviews of the past journals, Offa's Dyke Journal Volume 3 and what's contained within the journal. I also do a brief review of some of the other key articles that have come out in the last year on linear earthworks elsewhere. And then I explore the activities of the Offa's Dyke Collaboratory through 2021 as I'm aware of them, although there's probably many, many more things other folks have been up to, both members and co-conveners, that I don't cite. But there's a sort of an attempt to review, as well as mention some of the new heritage interpretation that has gone up, and as well as the Offa's Dyke Path, a 50th anniversary activities, and new signage placed on various locations up and down the path. So that's the introduction. It's quite a long introduction, but it tries to sort of set the scene for the activities of the collaboratory, the development of the journal, and the broader relationship and challenges in which both the Offa's Dyke Journal and the Offa's Dyke Collaboratory have faced during 2021. And there's a lot of links through to the resources there too. Now, the second article in Offa's Dyke Journal 3 by Professor Paolo Sgratriti is a republication. It's a Classics Revisited. And in this publication called Patrons, Landscape and Potlatch, Early Medieval Linear Earthworks in Britain and Bulgaria, we republish, give new images and new format to an article published over 20 years ago by Paolo, exploring Bulgaria in the 9th century and Mercia in the late 8th century and think about how linear earthworks form as a part of statecraft and expanding performative power relationships. And so this article is really sort of still relevant, still pertinent to debates about the function and significance of linear earthworks in early medieval Europe in comparative perspective. So that's definitely worth a read. Then third article is Offa's Dyke, A Continuing Journey of Discovery, co-authored by Keith Ray, Ray Bailey, Tim Copeland, Tudor Davis, Liam Delaney, Dick Finch, Niall Heaton, John Hoyle and Simon Madison. And it's basically an update of 4 or 5 years worth of intermittent fieldwork and collective discussions about the character of Offa's Dyke. And it presents new interpretations about the course and placement of Offa's Dyke up and down its length, building off the book by Keith Ray and Ian Bapty, published by Windgather in 2016. So this is a really important detailed update at various locations, starting in the south at Chepstow in Gloucestershire, following up the Wye, talking about different locations where Offa's Dyke has now been identified for the first time as secure on the ground evidence and has been speculated to be. So building the case for Offa's Dyke being longer and a new evidence for its situation in various locations along the Wye, and then discussions of Offa's Dyke at various locations around Simmons Yat and on the Herefordshire Wye, and then up into Shropshire, Montgomeryshire borders, into Shropshire near Trevonnan and its composition, and then discussing the far north, the possibility that Offa's Dyke did run all the way up to near Prestatyn, and discussions of the evidence from there. So this is a really important interim statement of aspirations of collective, collaborative endeavours linked to the Offa's Dyke Collaboratory, which Keith Ray has taken forward, trying to identify new sections and new insights into Offa's Dyke. And the new map at the end with its postulated length. So, having had our classics revisited and a new interim fieldwork statement, we then move on to more rigorous analysis in the form of LiDAR investigation by Liam Delaney, and this is part of Liam's ongoing doctoral research at the University of Chester, utilising LiDAR survey to locate and evaluate Offa's Dyke. So complementing Ray et al., Liam is able to really scrutinise, using LiDAR, this disputed section of Offa's Dyke as it crosses the Herefordshire plain from Rushock in the north to the River Wye in the southeast. And he's able to basically prove, using a LiDAR methodology, that Offa's Dyke runs near continuously through the stretch. And it's really exciting, carefully, rigorously pitched in terms of making sure he doesn't overstep the mark in terms of claiming earthworks that aren't there, but he's able to sort of follow with different levels of certainty stretches of the earthwork that had never before been identified. And so this is a really exciting and important piece of work that I encourage you all to read about ongoing doctoral research at the University of Chester. So that goes right the way down to the River Wye, where you can see the Wye continuing. And he also talks about a site at Brenton, which is also briefly mentioned in Keith Ray et al.'s article on the Wye as a possible Mercian fortlet as part of an extended use of the river itself as a defensive frontier. So he's able to really put Offa's Dyke on the map using LiDAR in a way that hasn't been achieved before. Now, there's a further paper on Offa's Dyke by David A. Humphreys, and this derives from University of Bristol postgraduate research and is an attempt to use GIS analysis and viewshed analysis in particular to evaluate the comparative size of the monument and its topographical disposition using the Clun Forest section on Llanver Hill as a case study where it's very well preserved, an iconic stretch of Offa's Dyke. So this short, methodologically distinctive paper looks at the comparative size of Offa's Dyke and makes the point that Offa's Dyke is actually, despite its monumental proportions, still quite small compared with some of the other linear earthworks in Britain, particularly here East Wands Dyke and the Devil's Dyke in Cambridgeshire. And he does an analysis of this section of Offa's Dyke in its view shed and makes the point you can see on the ground, but can be articulated visually, that Offa's Dyke does not have extensive westerly views, and therefore that has implications for understanding how it operated in the landscape, and was it purely a defensive monument. And Humphreys argues that it wasn't a defensive monument. That doesn't mean it didn't have any military function at all, but that its primary objective was not to be a defensive line. And I think his viewshed analysis adds new insights into that discussion of the function of Offa's Dyke in relation to routeways and movement through the landscape. And he posits, as does Tim Malin before him, and me to some extent in my later paper, the economic and the political dimensions of Offa's Dyke alongside a more military or territorial interpretation. A really exciting article comes next in the form of Nicky Garland, Barney Harris, Tom Moore and Andrew Reynolds, exploring linear earthworks across time and space, introducing the monumentality and landscape linear earthworks in Britain project. So this is another interim, but it's an important new Leverhulme funded project, and Garland et al. Give an introduction to their approach, the bigger problem of looking at both later prehistoric and early medieval linear earthworks in comparative terms, and then they show and demonstrate their preliminary audit on definitions and interpretations of the monuments, looking at southern Britain, or particularly southern England, and looking at the evidence of different kinds of investigations, doing a full audit of what work has been done, and a preliminary evaluation of their character. So this is an interim statement, but an important one, and watch this space for future years on this project, including their aspiration to produce an atlas of linear earthworks, which is more than just simply a descriptive review, but an important research resource for earthworks that are poorly surveyed and poorly understood, and putting the big earthworks such as Offa's Dyke and Watts Dyke in a broader context. Well done them. We're over halfway, and we shift in the last three articles, 2/3 of the way actually, we shift in the last three articles to three back-to-back publications that look together at Watts Dyke. Firstly, we have my own paper, Rethinking Watts Dyke, a Monument's Flow in a Hydraulic Frontier Zone, and this links to some public presentations I've given over the last 4 or 5 years, and really distills down a new evaluation of Watts Dyke as the smaller sort of neighbour and relatively neglected neighbour to Offa's Dyke, and tries to put it in a broader landscape zone, thinking of movement over and across water, or impedance of movement over and across water, and land flow, the flow of movement through the landscape over land routes, but thinking about it, theorising it in terms of these linear earthworks controlling, orchestrating, observing movement through the land and over and through and across water. So that's why I call it a hydraulic frontier zone. And my approach looks at the remaps Watts Dyke according to the Fox and Hill and Worthington research, and introduces what it looks like in some of its better preserved stretches, hardly as well preserved as Offa's Dyke. And then I take an argument forward to rethink it by remapping it in relatively schematic ways, but to try and see how the earthwork operates in relation to topography, but particularly in relation to water courses, and identify some themes in how the monument behaves and operates as it moves north to south through this landscape of borderland as it is going to emerge and become. So it's a quite a map-based argument, but also I've ground truthed this a lot by lots of field visits to sections of Watts Dyke, and then I make the broader point that as well as localised hydraulic interactions, Watts Dyke operated on a middle range scale of land routes and water courses across this borderland zone as frontier. And then I also make the point that there's a broader macro scale context that's way beyond Wales and Mercia with the usual framings of understanding this linear earthwork, but it's all to do with Western Britain, Mercia and its Western British context, its political, social, economic audiences and interactions. And in that sense, we have to think about its relationship with not only with the Welsh kingdoms and with Ireland, Man, Cumbria, even Cornwall, but also the relationships with the great Anglo-Saxon rival kingdoms of Wessex and Northumbria. So I think that Dyke may seem very regional or local, but I think in terms of its control and relationship with watercourses and mobilities, there's a macro scale in which it worked too. So that's my article. And then to complement that, we have the publication, which is already published on the Offa's Dyke Collaboratory website, of the What's Dyke Wrexham Comic Heritage Trail, designed by myself and John G. Swagger, and drawings and illustrations and some of the text by John G. Swagger, and with an introduction and then a map. And this is all interactive on the website in English and Welsh, downloadable PDFs. And then the panels envisaging how Offa's What's Dyke may have looked like speculatively, and text panels linked to each image. So you have the image and then a discussion of what you're looking at, and different levels of survival, different modern context in which What's Dyke interacts, and right the way through the heart of Wrexham town, through the cemetery, the Victorian cemetery built over at What's Dyke, and then back to the early Middle Ages, rather haughty, arrogant Mercian work operating west of the linear earthwork, up on the slopes there, envisaged with a watchtower and a palisade on top. Of course, we don't know for sure if that was ever the case. And then projecting forward again to the 12th, early 13th century maybe, or late 11th, early 12th century, of a Motte and Bailey at Erddig, where the linear earthwork is long gone, but is still part of a significant landscape of control and military domination, up to the 18th century with the destruction of a linear earthwork, and then to the modern field work by Fox and Clwyd Powys Archaeological Trust, and then to a modern visitor walking trail to finish, with it raiding and people using digital and analog sources to navigate their way through the landscape. Now finally, John and myself then do a reflection, a paper called Drawing the Line, What's Dyke, Practice and Process, where we reflect on the comic's construction, having done a preliminary book chapter in the book Public Archaeologies of Frontiers and Borderlands, outlining the rationale for doing a heritage comic. We then go through the process, the creative process, the collaborative process between us of creating the comic and choosing the 10 locations out of 15 preliminary ones, and then our choices about how we chose to do each comic, the view selection, and how we created those ideas. And embarrassingly, some of my bad preliminary sketches are included here, but to make the point about how the comic was created from something beautiful, from something quite ugly that I sketched out. So here you can see my sketch and what John produced through dialogue back and forth from that preliminary sketch. And again, ideas change and shift and develop. And that takes us up to 242 pages. So that is the full scale. That's our biggest journal yet. And it really shows the range and character of historic archaeological heritage studies on linear earthworks and frontiers and borderlands contexts that the journal is publishing. And while there remains an Offa's Dyke and What's Dyke focus heavily in this particular volume, we are very open and keen to publish comparative studies and broader ranging studies using new methods, new theories, new interdisciplinary approaches to investigate not only linear earthworks but frontiers and borderlands more broadly. So we know this journal, we've got a special issue coming up with Offa's Dyke Journal Volume 4 for 2022 to be co-edited with Dr. Ben Guy of the University of Cambridge. And we've also got our preliminary plans for an Offa's Dyke Journal 5 for 2023. And we're going to meet very soon as an editorial board to discuss what we're going to do moving forward after that. So, to conclude this little video introducing Offa's Dyke Journal Volume 3 for 2021, I want to thank those who are authors, thanks to peer reviewers, thank the editorial board, thank everyone that's tweeted and promoted the journal in every venue, and also the patience everyone's shown as we've struggled through this exhausting and difficult year of 2021 to get this open access journal. All the editing is done, all of the typesetting, all of it's done in-house, but we've worked very hard with JAS Archaeologia and also with ArchaeoPress to make these volumes available. You can download them for free from the Offa's Dyke Journal website and also from ArchaeoPress's website, and you can buy hard copies of volumes 1 and 2 for 2019 and 2020 from ArchaeoPress, and volume 3 for 2021 will be available for print purchase from ArchaeoPress very soon. Have a great 2022.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to Howard Williams on YouTube. In addition, consider following the ArchaeoDeath WordPress blog at howardwilliamsblog.wordpress.com.